This is the Tech Ed Podcast, where we interview leaders who are shaping, innovating, and disrupting technical education. And I'm your host, Matt Kirkner. We're 2 weeks into 2024, and we've already made some pretty bold predictions about what we think this year will hold for tech ed and the workforce. We shared those ideas on our annual predictions episode. And if you missed it, you can head over to techedpodcast.com/2024 or listen to the previous episode here on your preferred podcast streaming app. As we mentioned in that episode, this podcast has grown tremendously in the last 3 years, and the impact that it's making on the lives of educators, on industry leaders, and most importantly, on students is astounding. We exist to share the absolute cutting-edge innovations, the best success stories, the most relevant insights, so that you can learn from our weekly guests and take this new knowledge back into your own classrooms and facilities. We believe that the more people who hear these episodes, the more those messages can spread across the nation and the globe, and the better off technical education and the workforce will be. So we appreciate everyone who likes, comments, and shares our posts on social media. We appreciate everyone who tells their networks about the podcast. But another huge way you can impact our reach is by leaving us a review right there on Apple or Spotify. If you're an iPhone user and you're listening on Apple Podcasts, just scroll down to the bottom of our show page where you'll see ratings and reviews. Leave us a 5-star review if you love the show, and better yet, write a review with some comments about the value it brings to you. If you're on Spotify, they don't have that feature to leave a comment, but you can still give us 5 stars on that platform. By leaving a review, it'll ping the algorithms on these platforms to recognize that this is not only a popular show, it is well loved. And that will help Apple and Spotify suggest it to even more people who can benefit from the content and do the important work of securing the American dream for the next generation. Okay, now on to this week's guest. We talk so much these days about the incredible importance of having a skilled workforce. And in so many ways, it really doesn't matter what space we're in, what part of the economy we're in, what types of team members we're recruiting and training. Having a skilled workforce is among, if not the absolute top of the list for any company that is looking to expand, looking to grow, looking to innovate here in 2024 and beyond. Today, we're going to be talking about how we upskill the workforce in a really specific area of the economy, and one that just about every one of us has likely had an experience with. Just about every one of us will be familiar with this company. We are welcoming to the Tech Ed Podcast today, Mr. Eddie Hightower. Mr. Hightower is the Senior Vice President of Sustainability and Social Responsibility at, get this, Caliber Collision. Eddie, it is awesome to have you on the Tech Ed Podcast. Thanks for coming on.
Great. Thanks so much for having me. It's really nice to meet you.
Many of our audience members, most of them are going to be familiar, certainly with having an issue that needs to be rectified by a company like Caliber Collision, and likely all of them will be familiar with the company as well. So would love to have your perspective a little bit of the size of the company. How big is Caliber Collision? What are the scope of services that you're providing to your clients and so on? Just give us a flavor for the business.
Sure, thanks. And I always think it's the people, your listeners probably who have teenage children who have probably been in our shops most often, and we appreciate their business. So Caliber Collision, we've been around for 25 years now. And we actually have 30,000 teammates in 40 states across the United States, 1,700 collision locations. But we also have 4 other lines of business. So in addition to doing collision repair, we also have a scanning business. It's called ProTech Electronics. We have an auto glass division that handles all of your windshield replacements as well. We have Caliber Auto Care. And then our newest addition is actually a fleet service division. So we actually have taken over the Lyft service locations. There are 8 of them throughout the United States that actually services Lyft vehicles, LYFT, like the competitor for Uber. And so we're dipping our toe now into the fleet services world.
Like so many of the folks that we have here on the Tech Ed Podcast, what we know about their organization is just scratching the surface. And obviously, Caliber Collision is doing things way beyond what many of us would initially think about. You mentioned scanning. I think as you were going through those business units, I got a pretty good sense for what every one of them was, except for maybe that one. Help me understand what that's all about.
Sure. You probably have a what's called an ADAS system in the car you're driving today. And that stands for, it's an acronym that stands for Advanced Driver Assistance System, or ADAS. It's easier to say ADAS than all those words, I think. And so that's your blind spot indicators, your backup cameras, all of those things, including technology that's in windshields today. About 40% of windshields today also have this kind of scanning technology in them. They have cameras in them, they have sensors in them, for rain and for other things. Well, when you're in an accident or something else happens to your vehicle, those systems can be thrown out of whack. And so our service division called ProTech Electronics actually calibrates those systems. So we can do a diagnostic scan, figure out if there's something wrong with the system. Then we can calibrate, we can fix the system to make sure that when you drive off our lot after getting your car fixed, you don't immediately get into another accident when you have your blind spot indicator is not working. So that's our full service. And it's a really large and growing part of the services we offer. And actually, a little secret is we do some of our scanning business for some of our competitors who do not have the capabilities that we have to do it.
And that's when you know you're leading the industry, is when you're actually doing that type of work for people that you're otherwise competing with. I can also tell that this is going to be a discussion not just about workforce and training, but with a flavor for innovation. You're talking about some of the most innovative things going on in our economy, whether it's our cars becoming more and more autonomous. I had my first ride in a fully autonomous Waymo vehicle last week in Phoenix, Arizona. It was one of the most amazing and unsettling experiences of my life. It was completely safe, but just totally different as you're sitting in this vehicle that's literally driving itself, and you're in the back seat of it with no driver driving through traffic. An absolutely fascinating experience. Certainly some of the fleet management things you're doing as we move to more of a gig economy and a lease economy, if you will. You're really innovating in the space in a lot of different ways, not just through technology, but through investments and through your financial aspects of your business. So really excited to be hearing about that. I'm also excited to hear about the purpose for the people that work for Caliber Collision. As we think about Gen Zs, as we think about millennials, becoming so important for so many of them to have not just a job, not just a paycheck, but to really go to work somewhere where they feel like they're making a difference. And I know that's a key part of what you're doing. Tell us a little bit about your message to new employees, especially maybe those that are a little bit younger, in terms of what the purpose is working at Caliber Collision.
Thank you for that question. It is our highest purpose. It's called restoring the rhythm of your life. And if you think about, you led in with a lot of people have been to either Caliber Collisions or services like Caliber Collision. If you think about what happens in an accident, is that it throws off the rhythm of your life. Is you're going to a place you normally wouldn't have gone to. Like, people do not drive by and go, oh, look, there's a Caliber Collision, I think I'll go in and see what they do. No, they do not want to be in our locations. They're there because something has happened in their lives. So our highest purpose is to serve them, to get them back on the road as quickly as possible and as safely as possible. And so that's why we say everything relates to that highest purpose. We actually have something that we talk about called the Caliber Home. And so that is at the top of the Caliber Home. And then we have a vision to change the image of the auto services industry. And then we have 4 pillars. The first one starts with our people. And that's why we put it in a very decidedly place there. Their first position is focusing on providing our people with opportunities. And then at the bottom of our home, if you're imagining this home now with our roof being our highest purpose, our vision and our mission, and our people pillar in between, then it's all built on our core ethics and our core things that we're working to deliver, and it's our values. And the first one is we do the right thing. And so when we're talking to our current workforce and we're talking about attracting workforce tomorrow, that's what we talk about. We talk about our home. We talk about delivering on our purpose that goes through everything that we do.
It's just absolutely incredible. I love the focus on purpose. I love the focus on doing the right thing. I was just having a conversation last Saturday with a group of business leaders and talking about how important that is in business, and how quickly you can lose respect from your employees, your team members, your suppliers, your customers when you don't do the right thing. And then the other part of it was, we all agreed, it was interesting. Doing the right thing is never really hard to figure out. Sometimes it's hard, sometimes it's more difficult than doing something that may not be quite as virtuous. But the truth of the matter is, it usually isn't hard to figure out what the right thing is. It's just a question of, do you have the guts to do it? Are you willing to look long term rather than short term? Because in the end, that is what is going to create value for, as you mentioned, that first pillar, which is the incredible importance of having great people in the organization. And if you focus on your people first, it is unbelievable how many other things in a business will find a way to take care of themselves. And you're doing exactly that. One of the things that doesn't necessarily take care of itself without a lot of focus is attracting and retaining new talent. I know that you've got a brand new technician apprentice program, Eddie, at Caliber Collision. And I'd love for you to share with our audience a little bit about what that is and how it came to be.
We started our Technician Apprenticeship Program in 2022 because we saw that we were experiencing and we knew that there was going to be a shortage of trained technicians that was going to be really impeding our ability to grow and to serve our customers, which are mainly our insurance partners. And so knowing that, we made the decision to invest heavily in our own training program. And so in 2022, we kicked it off. That was our first full year. We graduated out of our Technician Apprenticeship Program 271 trained technicians. 2023, we grew our program. We have just announced our 1,000th, that is 1,000th participant who has graduated from our Technician Apprenticeship Program. Our goal is to be producing about 2,000 technicians a year in our program. We currently have just under 2,000 enrolled in our program, and it's an always-on program. This is a paid technician apprenticeship program. We pay for everything for the technician to participate. They pay nothing out of pocket. In fact, we pay them to be in the program. We provide them health and welfare benefits, retirement benefits, all of their training and tools. And they graduate the program with 3 critical skills programs that are ICAR certified. So they actually have these transferable skills that, of course, we hope that we attract them to stay with us for the rest of their careers by providing them career opportunities. But we know that we're also helping lift the industry, because if they go somewhere else, they're going there trained to our standards, and we think we're lifting the entire industry up. But it is a dire need within this world in collision repair specifically, is that the traditional technical schools are not producing enough graduates. And it is just something that's going to impact all of our pocketbooks. If you drive a car, this is important to you. Cycle times are increasing. They've been increasing for the past several years, ever since COVID. That's for a number of factors, but really it comes down to having not enough technicians. We estimate that there's about 30% of an addressable market that we aren't able to meet because we don't have enough technicians to meet that market. We're solving that issue though, and we are doing great things for these apprentices. They are coming out of our program with a life skill training, and the ability to make a great living for themselves, for their families, and think about what that does for their communities as well.
I mean, you think first of all about this whole rising tide lifts all ships mentality, which I absolutely love. Here at the Tech Ed Podcast, our mission is to secure the American dream for the next generation of STEM and workforce talent. There are a lot of people working on that effort, and the way that we look at it is that if you have that dream, if you share that mission, doesn't matter where you're doing it. It doesn't matter if you're doing something along with us. It doesn't matter if you're doing something maybe even in competition with us. We don't care. The end goal is what's important. And to hear somebody talk about, look, we're going to prepare these students, we're going to prepare these learners for amazing careers. We're going to pay them while they're going through it. We're going to offer them benefits. And we think we can offer them an amazing career choice once they're through with that process, once they're through with the certification. But we also say, look, if you're willing to go, or if you're interested in going and doing something else, we recognize that an industry is dependent upon having the right workforce, and we're willing to play our part in doing that. Very, very laudable effort, very, very laudable goal. It's also interesting when we talk about the effect of workforce on company performance. And you're telling me, look, we think there's this 30% of our market that we're not getting to solely because we don't have enough skilled people to do it. And we see an opportunity to provide even better service to our customers by improving cycle times, by having more resources doing this important work. That's really, really forward thinking, and creating this technician apprentice program is exactly the kind of thinking I think that we need to be doing across industry and multiple economic sectors. So credit to you, Eddie, for that foresight into Caliber Collision as well. So we understand, Eddie, that this is a registered apprenticeship program, which is fantastic. So students are actually going through an actual registered apprenticeship as they're earning these incredible skills. I'd be curious to understand a little bit for my own benefit. What does the experience for the student look like? How many courses are they taking? How much time are they spending in their coursework? Give us a feel for what the student is committed to, or the learner is committed to, when they're getting into this program.
Yeah, so the technicians that we get into our program, into the TAP program, it's a 10 to 12 month program, and as you mentioned, it is a registered apprenticeship program with the U.S. Department of Labor, and so of course it includes all of the things you expect in a registered apprenticeship program, including related instruction hours, on-the-job training, all of those things. It is as a differentiated program from others which you may be familiar with that are 2 to 3 years in length. Again, ours is shorter because it's a competency-based program. And so that means that our learners actually have to demonstrate their skill sets in 16 different competencies that we check in as we go along. So it's a kind of a self-paced program that we are, of course, moving people along as quickly as they can, but they have to show mastery at each part of the program. Once they've completed a competency, they move on to the next competency. And again, what they're experiencing is hands-on, on-the-job training, backed up by online learning, because as we all know, people learn in different ways. And so we have a very fulsome program that gets them learning in their ways, and they graduate the program at that point, but we're not done yet. So what happens is once they graduate the apprenticeship program, we follow them for another 6 months with additional check-ins. So we have quality technicians in the field who are very experienced technicians who then go and watch their work, who continue to expand their skills and make sure that they're meeting the caliber standards for delivering on a safe repair for all of our customers.
Fantastic. I think just some of the things that you mentioned there, Eddie, that are really going to resonate with our audience, certainly resonate with me. We love here the whole idea of competency-based learning, competency-based education. Shouldn't be about how many hours you spend in a classroom or in your online learning or doing hands-on skills. What's important is, can you do the job? Can you do the work? Do you have the competencies? And so competency-based education means that if I'm a high flyer, if I'm somebody that is picking up on this really quickly, I can get to whatever comes next more quickly. And if I'm that learner that maybe needs a little extra time, that's okay too. And now we can spend the extra time with that learner to make sure their competencies are up to the level that they need to be. I also like to touch on different learning modes and different ways of learning. Some people are great online learners. Some people are great classroom learners. Some people like myself are way better hands-on learning than they are trying to learn other ways. Everybody's a little bit different. And it sounds like you're meeting every single learner where they are, which is really, really important. Another aspect of making sure that we're meeting a learner where they are is making sure they have the right mentorship, making sure that they have examples that they can follow, making sure they have somebody that they can go to if they have questions or concerns or want to talk about something. I understand that this apprenticeship program also includes a mentorship aspect, and I'd be interested in learning more about that.
Yes, so we make sure that our mentor techs are equipped to be mentors. And so it's a completely voluntary program. We don't make anybody be a mentor. We encourage it. We invite people to participate, but we do a lot of hand-holding and a lot of check-ins with them as well. We actually even do surveys with our mentor technicians to see how they're viewing the program. What else do they need? How can we be more effectively supporting them? There's a centralized mentor program leadership team that actually also follows up with all of the mentors. So they're not out there on their own. They have tons of support. We check in with them. We listen to their voices. We make changes in the program based on what our mentor techs need as well. Because without them, we don't have a program.
Exactly.
And so that is what we find is we've got to keep them happy and keep our apprentices happy. And what we're seeing, honestly, and you probably are 2 steps ahead of me on this, is that we are seeing higher retention
Mm.
rates for the apprentices that come out of the program and the mentor
Huh.
techs versus non-mentors and non-apprentice based technicians.
That's a really fascinating observation. You think about it on both ends. I mean, the apprentice side probably doesn't surprise a lot of people that if you have a mentor, if you have somebody you can talk to, if you're going through a formal program, that you're going to feel, even more a part of the organization. You're going to feel more valued. You're going to feel like this is a place that I want to spend a long part of my career. But then on the mentor side as well, it's maybe not shocking, but we think about the incredible value of feeling like we're making a difference in the life of another person. We think about the incredible value of feeling like we're making a difference in the future of the company. And that's exactly what that does, placing an incredible amount of credence on the feedback that you're getting from your mentors as well as from your apprentices to make sure that those relationships are strong and that you're continually improving the program, which is in the end what any program is all about, which is let's start somewhere and then let's improve it over and over and over again. That's how we remain innovative. That's how we kind of pave the future, especially in the world of workforce training. I've got to believe with these over 1,000 people now that have been through this program, Eddie, that you've got at least a couple and probably many individual success stories. And I'd be curious if you have one or two that you'd be willing to share with us.
Well, I think that what we strive to do also in the program is that we make our graduations from the program incredibly special. And I can think of one particular impact. I wasn't there, but the head of our program was there, and she tells the story. Even not having witnessed it, it almost makes me tear up every time I think about it. But she talked about a graduation of one of our apprentice techs, I believe it was in California, that it was three generations of the family were there. And she saw them there, and she saw they were all crying during the graduation ceremony. And so she, seeing that, she walked over and she was like, is everyone okay? Is there anything I can do? You're crying. And it was actually the father of the apprentice who said, this is the first person in our family who has graduated from anything.
Wow.
And so that's why they were all there. That's the impact that this program is having on people's lives.
Well, that's when you know you're making a difference, when you're bringing a tear to the eye of an apprentice, or to their families, and recognizing that they have their whole life ahead of them. They have this incredible future ahead of them because a company was willing to make that investment. And it really, again, ties back to those of us that spend our time, whether it's manufacturing or industry, or in the businesses that Caliber Collision is working in, that if you do it the right way, the goal really should be to make a difference in people's lives. And everything else, when you focus on that, everything else comes later. And whether it's profitability or cash flow or growth or new customers or anything, as long as you focus on really making it a positive difference, it's incredible how often everything else follows along. And it's clearly what you're finding at Caliber Collision. I think you're also finding the fact that these folks are going to work in a rapidly evolving industry. And in as much as your organization is involved in a lot of different verticals, a lot of different sectors, and you're not just maybe the collision company that some of us think of when we think about Caliber Collision, you're working around all kinds of new technologies. We see technologies like EV, like smart sensors and smart devices, like autonomy. All of these things are transforming the transportation industry, the automotive industry. I've got to believe that you feel the same way and you're seeing the same thing. So as you're training new apprentices, as you're doing continuous learning for your team members, how are you looking at the future of technology and how the work of a service technician is going to evolve over the next 5 to 10 years in this rapidly changing economy that we're in?
Yeah, I would hate to even guess what's going to happen in 10 years, but let's do kind of closer in, maybe in the next couple of years. What's nice about our company is that we're in a position to be able to keep abreast of those technologies, to look at those and invest in those technologies, and partner with some of the largest OEs, the original equipment manufacturers like Ford, Toyota, and others. That we are actually able to be on the cutting edge with them and know what's coming down for us in terms of vehicles that we can expect into the future. So we're able to plan with that. One of the examples I would use would be Tesla as well, is that we, over the next year, will be opening about 70 to 100 actual Tesla structural centers, which is a large investment for our company in partnership with Tesla. So with our investment in doing our Tesla structural centers, is that again is a way of attracting the workforce of tomorrow, because they're seeing a company that is on the cutting edge of technology. And as I look ahead beyond that, think about the vehicles that are coming down the line for us. So they may be hydrogen vehicles or other things that we don't even know of yet that are coming. But again, I think that having programs in place, thinking about that way, the partnerships that we have in place, the investments we're making today and tomorrow in training, in technology, in equipment, that's what's going to keep us at the forefront of our industry and hopefully bring others along with us.
So what is a structural center? I heard you use that term. I admit I'm not completely familiar with that. I could guess, but help me understand that a little bit.
In order to work on a Tesla vehicle in particular, you actually have to be certified by Tesla to do that. And as you can imagine, EVs or battery electric vehicles have a lot of technology in them. They also have a lot of danger, is what I would describe. With one or more batteries in them, is you have to have special equipment, special training, and special knowledge about how to work with those vehicles. So that's what they're really interested in doing. And again, it's our partnership and our size with Tesla that enables us to do that. And again, I think really differentiates Caliber when it comes to our space, our industry.
It's interesting when you mentioned that. As we're recording this, I'm actually heading to Detroit, Michigan this evening to facilitate a meeting of about 100 folks in the EV space tomorrow around manufacturing electric vehicles safely. And a huge part of that is on the battery side. Because you're right, if you don't know how to work around the battery in an electric vehicle, there's a real risk for issues with personal safety. And so credit to you for recognizing that, credit to Tesla for recognizing that, making sure that we're training people in a specific way to work around that technology safely. As many benefits that come along with EVs as there are, we also want to make sure that we're mitigating any of the risk. It sounds like you're doing exactly that. And something that you mentioned, Eddie, actually took me back to my manufacturing days. We used to talk in contract manufacturing that it was one thing to try and steal a project, a manufacturing project, from a competitor in your industry. So they're doing a project for a company, you can try and steal that project. It's another thing to be the first one in line when the company is initially putting that project out into the market and becoming the very first company to partner with, for example, an automotive OEM like a Toyota, like a Honda, like a GM, like a Ford, and so on, like a Tesla. It's another thing entirely to be on the ground floor when they're actually doing the development. And that's when you know you have a great relationship with your customers, when you are there as they're developing a new product, sharing ideas on design for manufacturability and so on. And that just resonated with me as you completed that last answer and talked about the importance of being a real true partner to your OE customers and partners, and really, really important work. So as we're thinking about these new technologies, I've got to believe that this idea of lifelong learning becomes really important as well. In other words, we can have a technician apprentice that is joining us maybe early in their career, making a career change or something like that, coming to work for our company. We also have this aspect of somebody who's been in the industry for a while, maybe working for us for a while, in a world that, as you just suggested, the technology is going to change. We can't project 10 years into the future, maybe not even 5. I mean, just is a sense for how quickly technology is changing. Tell me about how Caliber Collision makes sure that not just its new employees have the right training, but the people that are your incumbent workers that have been with you and will be with you for a long time are also keeping their skills sharp.
Absolutely. So Caliber invests heavily in continuing training for our teammates. There are, as you mentioned, our partners, our OE partners, have certain training requirements that are continuous in nature. We have certifications with most every one of them, as you can imagine. And in order to do that, you have to have technicians that meet their standards. And that requires an ongoing heavy investment. And again, Caliber is uniquely situated to be able to do that. And they do come to us. As you mentioned, that's a great thing about working for a company like Caliber, is not only are we open to it, but we're in a position to meet with our OE partners as they are developing their training, as they're looking ahead, as they're listening to us about complexity of repairs, challenges that we're facing in actually repairing their vehicles. Because if you think about it, when you think about managing an automotive, the circular economy and building circularity into what we do, everything comes to a certain point. So once you get the materials together, once you manufacture the vehicle, you deliver the vehicle, you drive the vehicle, you wreck the vehicle, it comes to one place, and that's us. And so this is the really unique position that we have, is that we're either responsible for extending the life of a vehicle, keeping it on the road longer, which is great for the environment, great for all of us as drivers and policyholders and insurance, or responsible end-of-life management, which again is made even more complex when you talk about the battery electric vehicles and others. That's really difficult. And we actually do both of those, I think, incredibly well. Is that our technicians are the top in the industry. They're really great at you would look at a car and go, we should just total that car. They look at it and they see opportunity. They see, I can bring that back to life. I can restore it to pre-accident condition, which is what we do. Or if it has to be taken out of the economy, we do that in a very responsible fashion. We recycle most of the parts of the vehicle wherever we can. Battery electric vehicles are their own animal, and we're getting really good at that too by partnering with leaders who are actually handling those in a safe and very environmentally sound way as well.
So with somebody like with a title like Senior Vice President of Sustainability and Social Responsibility, those are the kind of things I know, Eddie, that you're thinking about all the time. And it's not just how do we run a profitable business? How do we make sure that we've got the right people in the right positions at the right time with the right training? But also, how are we making sure that we're doing that in a fashion that has minimal impact on the environment, that takes maximum opportunity of repurposing whatever that asset is, of extending its useful life, because we're all the beneficiaries of that. So I love the holistic approach that you and Caliber Collision have to the work that that you're doing. I also love the approach that you have to inspiring this next generation of talent. When you talk about all these apprentices that are coming through your program, those are young people in many cases, not necessarily, but people that are being inspired toward really, really cool careers, family supporting careers, sustainable careers. But that doesn't necessarily start when somebody graduates from a technical college or graduates from high school at all. It really starts while they're in high school and really even as early as middle school. So talk to us about that. Your impression of automotive programs in high schools, of those in technical and community colleges, and here in 2024. How do you ensure that you're partnering with those organizations to establish that they've got the right curriculum, the right training systems, and that it's relevant to today's workforce?
It's a huge opportunity. And I think that all the things that we're doing in our apprenticeship program have relevance to instruct those programs. And we do a lot of sharing with those programs in the communities that we serve in. So we spend a lot of time with high schools and even technical schools. We don't see them as competitors, in fact. We see them as feeders into our program. And so we will take graduates from technical schools and teach them, build on their skill sets that they've learned. But you're right, it's reaching into those middle schoolers and high schoolers. It's not just the students. It is their parents that we've got to get to, because there is this thing that you probably are aware of called a paper ceiling. And it is parents who are telling their kids that if they want to get ahead in this world, they've got to go get a college degree. And then what? You're graduating $40,000 to $60,000 in debt, even at a state school these days. And then what? Are you pursuing your passion? You're building on your skill sets. You're doing what you're really meant to be doing. And what we need to be doing is getting to the middle schoolers and the high schoolers and giving them the message of that there are alternate careers out there. And I add to STEM, it's our head of recruiting actually taught me this one, it's STEAM. We're looking for the STEAM. We're looking for those who have an artistic bent as well. Because of the work that our collision technicians do, there's an art to it as well. They can look at a crumpled piece of metal, they can see what it should look like when it's fixed, and then they can do it. That's artistry. And we actually call them artisans. We call them the artisans of caliber, in fact. But we're looking for STEAM students, and we're working very hard to get our message into the middle schools and the high schools, to the parents, to teach them there is another way, and to really give them an alternate path for their careers.
As we've seen the evolution in technical education and in STEM, I'll admit, and I've admitted on this podcast in prior episodes, that when we first started calling it STEAM, it felt a little bit at the time like maybe the art people were just trying to get their hands on all the money that was going to CTE, right? And then we started having some really deep conversations with people like Laura Kohler of the Kohler Company is one example that makes just tremendous investments in this convergence, we call it, between art and manufacturing, or in your case, the convergence between art and the world of collision and repair and so on. There really are some great opportunities, I think. I think a lot of times students, they get into art classes. I actually enjoyed my art classes and did pretty well in them when I was in school because they're hands-on. You're working with your hands, you're working creatively, you're starting with something and turning it into something else. Well, guess what? That's exactly what we do in manufacturing. That's exactly what you're doing at Caliber Collision. And I think we really do have these opportunities for students to use their creativity, to use some of those skills they've learned and maybe some of the non-core aspects of their coursework and their education pathway toward really amazing careers that, to your point, don't require 40, 50, $60,000 of student debt and are going to pay you the kind of money that even if you had that debt, you could satisfy it. Where so many endeavors that our young people go after post university, post 4-year college degrees, that they never make the kind of money that would ever justify the kind of investment that they made in their education. And that's not to pick on 4-year degrees. I have one. I'm proud of it. There's a lot of jobs that we have in our economy that require them. But to your point, there are so many opportunities that are available to young people if we just get to them at the right age and inspire them and show them what could be possible. Speaking of getting people at the right age, we want to go back in time to kind of when you were at that age, all the way to the time when you were the 15-year-old Eddie Hightower. It's a question we love asking. It's one of my favorite questions we ask here on the Tech Ed podcast. We get so many fascinating answers. And as we kind of close out our time here today, Eddie, would be interested in your answer to this question. And that is, if you were able to go back in time and talk to that 15-year-old Eddie Hightower and give him a little bit of advice, what would that advice be?
So, at 15 years of age, I thought I was going to be a medical doctor. And I went to college thinking I was going to, like you, I have a 4-year degree, and I got into college and did pre-med. And I then got into a certain chemistry class that taught me that I was probably not destined to be a medical doctor.
Right.
I then said, well, what else can I do? And that's when I determined that I was going to be a lawyer. And so I pursued a law degree instead. So I would still go back to the 15-year-old. I would go back even earlier than that, because before I was going to be a medical doctor, I was going to be an airline pilot. And then I was like, well, I don't know about that. So I'll be a medical doctor. It was disavowed by that with physical chemistry, I think it was, that destroyed me in college. But I would say, keep dreaming, keep thinking about the art of the possible, and you don't know where you're going to end up. I've been incredibly fortunate over my career that I've had some great mentors and people who have given me career corrections and advice, some that I took and some that I didn't. But I would say to the 15-year-old is don't lose your dreams. Keep an open mind about where you could end up. Don't think that just because there's this one course that's right in front of you, that that's actually where you're going to end up. So be ready, be open, and follow your passions. And I'm in a job now that I don't tell my boss this, but I honestly am a little embarrassed that they pay me to do this, because this is the best job in the world that I've had. It was a total change in career for me. I was in human resources. I was over our human resources practice until about a year and a half ago, and you never know where you're going to end up. 25 years in human resources or legal, and I'm now in sustainability, and I think I finally found my passion. And so you also never know in the course of your career where you're going to end up.
For sure you don't. And if there's a common theme in all those career choices, whether it's an airline pilot that's helping people get to where they want to go, whether it's a medical doctor that's helping people maintain a healthy lifestyle or recover when they have an issue, whether it's an attorney that's protecting the least of these, if you will, or whether it's somebody in HR helping people be their best person, or in a role like yours, Eddie, Senior Vice President of Sustainability and Social Responsibility, taking this incredibly holistic approach to the betterment of the company, the betterment of the team members, the betterment of the community and your customers, and doing it in a really, really unique and thoughtful way. It's been fascinating to get to know you. I've really enjoyed our conversation. Really appreciate you joining us this week, Eddie, on the Tech Ed Podcast.
Same here. Thank you, Matt. And it was great to meet you as well.
What a fantastic episode with Eddie Hightower, the Senior Vice President of Sustainability and Social Responsibility at Caliber Collision, where we showed that companies that do the right things for the right reasons can create incredible futures, not just for their workforce, but for themselves. To get all the show notes and links to resources mentioned in this episode, head on over to techedpodcast.com/Hightower. We have the best show notes in the biz, and you'll find helpful information there. Don't forget, we're active on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. We post regularly about new episodes, featured insights, and great content. So find us on your favorite social platform and say hi. We would love to connect. Finally, new episodes drop every Tuesday, so be sure to listen in next week.